Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. So today I'm going to be doing a video all about how to study for your undergraduate exams and tips to do well in your courses. And so a little bit about me, I just graduated from York University's healthcare management program and I graduated in June, and my channel here, it's all about lifestyle, academia, and I would really appreciate it if you guys could like this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure to comment down below, tell me like what kind of videos you guys are interested in so that I can work on them in the future. And then also, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you can find out whenever I upload. So without further ado, let's get started. The first tip that I have for you guys is to make sure that you are accountable. So there's two different ways you can go about this. Number one, be accountable to yourself. Number two, be accountable to other people. So when I talk about being accountable to yourself, what I mean by that is if you have a goal, let's say you want to get an A in like economics, right? Don't just say, okay, I'm getting an A in the end, it's gonna work out. Instead, make a plan. So if you want to get an A in the course, what do you need to get on the midterm? What do you need to get in the final? How much is each one worth? And then let's say something doesn't go according to plan, like you get a quiz and you get like 70% on it. Well, you can still end up with an 80, but you might need to get like a 90 on the midterm, but that's okay. So make sure like you have a clear plan of what you want to do. Make sure that you're tracking your progress, and then if something doesn't go according to plan, move it around a bit, but make sure that you're holding yourself accountable to that. And then another thing that you guys can do is be accountable to your friends or be accountable to a classmate, someone else. So what I used to do in undergrad is I had a couple of friends, and like all of us, our goal, like when we graduated, we were like, we're graduating summa cum laude, right? So this is what we did. Like all of us at the end of every semester, we would get together and we'd be like, hey, like how are we doing? Let's track our goals, track our progress. Like, are we meeting that? Are we getting like, this many A's? How are we doing with that? Should we be trying harder? And then like, it was really comforting to have other people that, you can kind of talk to, and they have the same goal, you're working towards the same thing. Like it's really motivating. So I think it's really good if, number one, like I said, be accountable to yourself, write down your goal, make sure you have it everywhere, put it in your agenda, leave it in your room, stick it somewhere, then be accountable to your friend or someone else and work towards your goals together. So the next tip that I have for you guys is to use different study techniques. Now, when you're in first year undergrad, chances are you're gonna have all of these intro classes. Like I remember I took like intro to psychology, finance, economics, but here's the thing, how you study for each course is completely different. So if you're gonna use the same techniques, like it's probably not gonna work. So here's what you have to do in order to do well in your courses is understand what they are testing you on. So for example, I took intro to psychology. That course is like mainly, it was memorization, right? So I would make notes, and then what I would do is using like active recall, then I would make sure that, once I read through the textbook, once I made notes, then I memorized the notes. Then not only just memorizing it, make sure you're testing yourself or get someone else to test you or use Quizlet, but make sure that you can understand the material and say it in your own words. Because if you're just, memorizing things and you're not testing yourself, then when the test comes, you're gonna be like, oh, I remember that, but do I really remember that? Or you might remember a definition, but you don't know how it's used. So make sure you really are understanding that material. But yeah, for that class, for example, intro to psych, it was mainly what I did was purely memorization and then making sure I understood my own words. Now for another class, like I took finance, statistics. So for those classes, it was more about understanding the concepts and then doing the practice questions. So a lot of the times, like after every week, our professors would give us like homework to do. So then what I would do to prepare for the final exam is I would redo all the homework. So I would make sure that I understood the lessons, and then if I didn't understand anything, go over it. And then what I did was did practice questions. And that's all about like repetition, making sure you're understanding it and applying it well, right? So that's a little bit different. Okay, so the next tip that I have for you guys, and it's specifically for final exams. So what you want to do is you want to make a revision guide. So I used to do this all the time in undergrad and it really saved me. What I would do is for every chapter, make like 1 to 2 pages of notes. It can be notes. You could also put in like practice questions. You could also just put in diagrams, examples, but pretty much like each chapter, it would have like almost everything you need to know, and it wouldn't have it in detail. It would just have the general concepts, right? So for chapter 1, you have all the general concepts notes listed. Chapter 2, chapter 3, so forth until chapter 10. So you're going to end up with about 10 to 20 pages for this revision guide. And that's really good, because what you want to do is you want to keep that, because closer to the exam, maybe you want to flip through that. Even like the day of, you might just want to skim over some of the concepts, but you don't need to go in so much detail. And this revision guide's really good, because sometimes when you're studying and there's so much information in the final, like you remember something, but you don't even remember like which part of the lesson's from. Then you sometimes get confused because it's in one chapter and then you're like, I thought it was in the other, and you might get the names confused, you might get the concepts confused, which is like not good. So having this revision guide, you can flip back and forth, and then you can see, okay, this is where the topic's listed. And like, let's say you need to go into more detail about one concept, then you know where to find it. You're like, okay, it's in chapter 2. I'm gonna go to chapter 2. I'm gonna find it. And I found that like this was really helpful for me. Like it was great, and you could totally do it for the midterm. It might take a while, but I think for the final, like especially for those courses where like there's just so much material and like you don't even know, like sometimes you're like a little bit overwhelmed, this really helps you to like stay grounded, and I think like just do well overall in your undergrad classes. Okay, so a tip that I have for you guys is to try and study in different places. Now, I know like especially if you're doing your undergrad at home, and you know, if right now like all the classes are online, it can be a little bit mundane doing the same thing like every single day. It's the same routine. So I think what really helped me was kind of switching it up. So like one day go study at Starbucks, one day go to campus, like one day meet up with your friends and like test each other. So make sure that, you know, you're a little bit more excited, because I find like do the same thing over and over again is very predictable. But like kind of change it up and get your brain excited, motivated. And you know, I think that this will really help you in staying focused. And it's a small tip, but I do think that like it does go pretty far. So the next tip that I have for you guys is make sure that you plan out your courses and schedule all of your due dates, all the deadlines. And I have a really good tip for how you can do this. So go on Google Calendar, and then what you want to do is in the beginning of the course, they give you like a syllabus, right? So it has all the important deadlines. So what you want to do is go on Google Calendar, make a list of all of them. So make an event and be like, okay, test 1, like October 15th or whatever, right? Then what you want to do is set a reminder and set it up as an email. So what you can do is like, okay, the day before, then you can send yourself a reminder, and it'll go to your inbox in your email, and it'll say like test tomorrow, right? And then what I like to do is, I think I put like 3 reminders, which is kind of a lot, but you know, it's up to you. So like a week before, right? I would get an email saying like, reminder, like test is like October 15th, right? 5 days before, 3 days before, you would get that. So then you keep on seeing it, so it's in your head, because sometimes what would happen is like, if you didn't schedule in all these deadlines, you would end up forgetting until like your friend is like, oh, it's due tomorrow, and you're like, oh, it's due tomorrow, I didn't even start. So it's a really good idea to do this. I did this for all of my classes. Like, use Google Calendar. It's free, I'm pretty sure, for all university students. So make sure that you use it properly, use the email function. And then another thing you could do, which it might be a little bit more work, but it's really helpful. If you have a test, break it down. So chances are if you have a test, there's, let's say 4 lessons. So what you could do is like set a reminder for yourself. Okay, like the test, let's say, yeah, it was October 15th. Maybe by October 3rd, you should be finished reviewing lesson 1. So you could put a reminder, October 3rd, finish lesson 1 for the test. That's October 15th. And then you could do that for each lesson. And then you're kind of reminded, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to do that. To do this, and that way it's in your calendar, and you get it sent to you as an email. So I'll insert something here how it looks like, but yeah, it's a really good tip. Like, let me know how it works out for you guys, but I found this to be so helpful, like probably one of the biggest tips, because think about it. If you forget to submit an assignment, you forget to do those, especially those like weekly quizzes or like the forum posts, like if you forget those, it's like 5% of your grade, but it adds up. Like, especially if it's like 5% one month, 5% another month, like these are little things, but they add up. So it's a really important tip. Okay, so the last tip that I have, and I mentioned it a little bit, but make sure that you're testing yourself. Use active recall. So what that means is like, you know, if you have information, don't just let it, you know, just sink into your head and then like stay there. No, do practice questions. Or if it's like, you know, a course where it's a lot of memorizing, get your friends who are in your class, make a study group, and then, you know, quiz each other on definitions. And you don't have to get like the exact definitions, like if you're a little bit off, it's okay, but like just try to make sure that you're pulling it out of your head. Like, you know, you have the information in there, get it out there, because if the test is the first time that you're like pulling the information out of there and all you've done is really like you understood the concepts, but that's it, it's going to be a little bit difficult and you might be like a little bit shocked in the exam. You're like, oh, I remember that. But it's important to make sure that you're testing yourself and make sure that you're also engaging with your classmates. I think like this is another tip that I think is really beneficial, and especially like if it's online, it's like so much harder, but I mean, you can still like kind of message people, join student clubs online. I'm sure they have a lot of that now, right? And then also like talk to the professors. They're the ones who can help you the most. So really just make sure that you are engaging in your class. Like I said, so engage with the material, like I said, test yourself, do with other people, and then engage with the people around you. So those are all the tips that I have for you guys. I really hope that you guys found this video interesting. I really hope that you liked it. If you do have any more questions, like feel free to let me know. I love to make YouTube videos. I do have a few more plans, so I'm really excited about that. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, like feel free to message me on Instagram. My DMs are always open. I'm more than happy to chat with all of you. So yeah, make sure to like this video if you haven't done so already, comment down below what you want to see next, and subscribe.